Hey folks, welcome in to Pro Football Ireland. Sitting here on a Friday evening. Welcome. I hope everyone's a great weekend. Michael McQuaid, delighted to be joined by the one, the only, Jeffrey Aloysius Ryan. Jeff, happy training camp weekend. How you doing?
Hey, man, they're getting ready to they're already in camp. Some of the teams are already in camp, and everybody else is waiting to get in next week. It's a great time for football. We're in the middle of our season in the CFL. The XFL and USFL have now had their seasons, and the NFL season's right around the corner. So it's a great time to talk a little football because we've had a tremendous amount of, kind of a late flurry of some interesting stories, Michael.
We have. Just before we start that, I have to contractually, I'm joking, let people know that there are two events in Belfast and Dublin. Your man J-Bell's coming to Belfast, and I've got Christian Scotland Williamson coming to Dublin. Great guy, met him in Phoenix. I think people are going to really love both shows. If you want Jeff to stand in a theatre and go bananas in January, please come and see J-Bell. It's going to be a crack. That's on the 3rd of August. Christian is on the 31st of August, and videos will pop up. Thank you for your support, folks. Back to the topics. It's funny you're mentioning training camp, right? Because I know there's different stories going on in the league. Man, I'm so ready for the Jets. Like, we are sitting here at the time of recording, we're 2 weeks out from the Jets and Hard Knocks. Jets training camp started in earnest on Thursday. I'm just waiting for the toys to be thrown out of the pram. Am I going to get what I want, Jeff?
Well, I don't know. I heard last week that it's going to be a kinder, gentler Hard Knocks than we've seen in the past, and that the Jets have said they do not want Hard Knocks in the coach's offices or general manager's office when a player gets cut. So we'll lose that little bit of drama. And everybody loves to see a car crash. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Because those personal stories were so interesting and so compelling. And it's a little bit close to home because in the first time that the Hard Knocks was with the Jets back in the Rex Ryan era, one of our offensive linemen from the University of Hawaii, Aaron Kia, was in training camp with the Jets, and they cut him, and it was a really, really difficult thing to watch, and it was very hard. Really disappointing for the player, obviously, and I think that in the best interests of everybody, I think that this is probably a good thing to not have those cameras right in there when a guy's getting cut, because it's hard to think about it in our own lives, Michael. Would you want somebody, you're getting fired and you're in the meeting where you get fired and they've got cameras rolling in there to try and get your reaction? So I'm kind of glad that that's going to be the way to handle it.
I think that's a fair point. There's no call for that. I do feel, though, that the Jets must adhere to all our contractual agreements, and we will see everything from Aaron Rodgers to Zach Wilson.
And I don't think there's any question. As long as you've got Aaron Rodgers there, you're going to get enough, headlines. I mean, he's a guy that speaks his mind. He's not shy about what he believes in and the things he stands for. He is already, I thought, handled himself extremely well with the media, and he's talking sense really about how much they've got to kind of temper expectations, because there are a lot of people that in New York particularly that have already said they're going to the Super Bowl. Well, it's a lot that has to happen for that.
Have you seen your schedule?
Well, yeah, and I mean, think about it. Over that schedule, that 17-game schedule, you've got to be able to stay healthy. You've got to, everybody's going to face adversity during the course of a season. That's just a given. It's how you deal with it that I think matters. It was interesting to see them let go of Denzel Mims this week. And, here's a guy that they drafted extremely high and had tremendous hopes for, a long-bodied receiver that never could quite fit in with the Jets. And they, sent him to Detroit. And really, it was, kind of a cut your losses kind of concept with letting that kid go. But he had become expendable because he's a fifth receiver and doesn't play special teams. And they went out and got Braxton Berrios, who will go into the slot. And, so I think it's interesting. There's no guarantees in this business. And certainly, when you talk about drafting players, sometimes it's throwing a dart at the dartboard. And, I hope for the kid, I hope he can resurrect his career in Detroit.
Yeah, Bills, Cowboys, Patriots, Chiefs, first 4 games. Play the Eagles in week 6 as well for the Jets. That's going to be an interesting schedule. We've got our AFC East deep dive coming middle of next week, both on YouTube and on podcast form as well. Jeff, I have to mention this because I was at the Shamrock Bowl last weekend, and it's the first time I've been able to talk about this. Loads of people ask you to come to Limerick. I don't know what's going on there. TBC, leave it with us. But people saying, I'm trying to think of the people who was chatting to Kane, chatting to Michael, saying they love listening to the podcast, love listening to you. So thanks for everyone for their support. But the reason I mentioned the Shamrock Bowl, great day as well, but for people in the UK as well that might not be into the Irish domestic game, this is why I mentioned this. This place was 5 hours away from my house. And I got into the car at 6:30 and drove back up. Great day, great crack. I looked at my phone, Jeff, within 20 minutes. And on a Sunday, Hopkins had the non-decency to, like, this whole thing. I couldn't stop the car. I was on the motorway. So the whole Hopkins thing went down. And I was like, really? Is this happening right now? And we haven't had a chance to talk about it. So I'll very quickly say this. I'm surprised. Look where he was. And
I am too, Mike, because I really thought that the Patriots, more than any team, made sense to me because they needed help. They need a dynamic guy at wide receiver, and he certainly is that. They have the cap space, they had opportunity to do all those things, and to see him go to Tennessee, if you're a Titan fan, hey, what a great addition to a team that's really, I think, always a threat to be in the playoffs. I think they're extremely well coached. I think Vrabel, knows what he's doing with his staff. They run the ball well. Again, just I think really, and we're going to talk about the AFC East, and I thought that was a big get that the Patriots had to make, and they weren't able to pull it off. D-Hop goes to Tennessee. He's going to make the Titans, I think, the favorite now in that division. Because that's another huge weapon. Since they lost A.J. Brown, that offense was not nearly as dynamic. I think when you pair him in an offense where he's going to see a lot of single coverage outside because you got to play 8-man fronts to stop the run, that he could have a tremendous year. And again, everybody talks about inability to get him the football. I don't buy into that. I think the problem with their passing game, frankly, had been that they just weren't dynamic enough outside at receiver. So he certainly is going to add that to Tennessee.
We've got a few questions coming up in a second. Folks, we really appreciate everybody getting the questions in. It means an awful lot to Jeff, and it means an awful lot to myself. There's multiple training camps that have either started or are starting tomorrow on a Saturday. For example, the Jets got underway yesterday. The Patriots got underway today on Friday. The Bengals get underway tomorrow. Some teams, like the Steelers, starting July the 26th. But, most teams getting underway. And Jeff, the crack starts. The crack starts now, baby. We're a mere few weeks out from the preseason, and it's that exciting time. But, you got the Browns against the Jets in the Hall of Fame game on the 3rd of August. And then we go into a 4-week stretch of games in the preseason, and we're almost there. And it feels glorious. I mean, there is that real excitement, Jeff, again, that we have, and I think we can see that in just the questions that everybody is getting in. I'm going to put it on the screen now. You can sense I'm so good at making up time there. Let's see. Anyway, Jeff, questions. You ready, Jeff? You ready?
Yep. Let's have it.
Good to go. Right. Roger, who is from Belfast. Hi, Roger. How's it going? Are there signs that Russell Wilson could turn things around for the Broncos this season? That's a really interesting question because the answer would make you a millionaire if you knew what the answer was, Jeff.
Well, I think there's signs because I think they're going to have a better coaching staff. He's going to be, he's going to be in an offense that, Sean Payton has been in for years. They understand it. He's assembled a great coaching staff. I think that, you know, Peyton will obviously respect Russell Wilson and his history and his, you know, all he's done in the league, but he's not going to be the guy that basically was. If you look at that situation last year, there was just so much going on where you almost question like who was the boss in the deal, and there is no question that Sean Payton is the boss, and he has a history of getting the best out of quarterbacks, and you know, Russell I think still has enough gas in the tank, and I think that he will bounce back this year. The problem that I see with the Broncos is you're just in a really, really, really tough division, and you know, you've got to have to get elite quarterback play. How much better Russell Wilson will play, we will see. But I certainly think that offense will be better than it's been, and he'll perform at a much higher level than he did last year.
Philip from the UK, thank you for your question, my man. Does Jeff Reynolds think Jordan Love has what it takes to take the Packers? Wait for it, Jeff. To a Super Bowl.
Will be one of the fastest.
To a Super Bowl, Jeff?
No, I don't think. Again, we'll tap the brakes there a little bit. I think he's going to. First of all, he's going to have to get this team to the playoffs. Now, when you look at the Packers, and we talked about the Packers when we talked about the NFC North, you know, they're good enough on defense if they play, you know, to their capabilities. Offensively, I think, you know, they're going to lean on the running game and keep it simple for the quarterback, not require him to do as much as they ask Aaron Rodgers to do. I think that's good coaching. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air. Whether this kid, with as little experience as he has and as little NFL game time as he's had, it's going to be a growing season for him. And they're going to be growing pains. He's going to have one of those. He'll have some games where, you know, I'm sure we're going to see multiple interceptions, but I think you're also going to see that this guy has a tremendous amount of ability. And, you know, again, I think it's important for everybody to realize that he's very young. And I mean, did not have a great body of work in college. He was, you know, played it during the COVID time and I mean, all that craziness, and then came and has sat for basically his whole NFL career. Now it's his opportunity. How he'll grasp that, you know, will be an exciting thing to watch.
Yeah, the Super Bowl comment was interesting, but I look, we appreciate it. Now, there was one that got a lot of, you may not have seen it because the guy's account is on, it's on locks. Do you remember the guy in Belfast that rolled into the pub and showed you his leg? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Adrian asked us a question. Hi, Adrian. How's the form? Simple. Is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer? Now, Adrian, if you're looking at the video right now, mate, Jeff, I mean, where do we start with this? I mean, if he had won Super Bowl 50, is that a bit more relevant conversation or what?
Well, I think you know, that's really an interesting question, and you know, I think that when you look at his career, and he was an MVP. He did some amazing things. He took a Carolina team to the Super Bowl. Didn't play particularly well in the Super Bowl, you know, but I do think that while he was an elite level player, to me, to say he's a Hall of Fame player, that would be a reach. That would be a stretch for me. You know, I don't think, and it's sad really, because I think injuries took their toll on his career, and you know, the way it ended up, you know, in New England, and you know, just seeing him a shell of what the player he was, because when he came into the National Football League, he was a, you know, incredible talent, big, strong, threw the deep ball extremely well, was a threat to run the football, had charismatic leadership abilities, and a fun guy to watch. And then as the injuries kind of took their toll, I don't, you know, he's, like I say, he's kind of a shell of what he was early in his career. And I don't think he had the longevity that it would take to be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Jeff, let's round up this podcast with a very interesting and frankly quite a current topic that I think people will be interested in as they go into their weekends here. Saquon Barkley, they missed the franchise tag deadline, and then an interview. I'm not sure if you've seen this video on social media, but an interview
where he says, "Do I have to take the season off to show you how much value I am?"
and that was 10 days old, and that's why I'm buttoned in and saying that interview was 10 days old, and you seen Jeff the look in his face when he said it. That guy looks fed up. Do you think he is? I don't want to be rude and say one here, but do you think he is? He is maybe trying to play a game here to get a bit more money. You're looking at a situation where there's reports that he was offered up to $19.5 million guaranteed at week 7 of the bye last season, and now apparently they're 1 or 2 million off. They now, folks, in case you're interested, they cannot negotiate more than a 1-year deal. And for all the great work that Brian Dable and Joe Sheehan have done over the last 12 months, Jeff, this is a major issue. Yeah, I feel like it's not being talked about enough.
Well, I think it's really interesting to see how they're basically the running backs who are out there looking at franchise tags. I'm talking about Austin Eckler. I'm talking about Josh Jacobs and certainly Saquon. They've kind of banded together to publicly, complain about the fact that they are underpaid. And, I think it was Saquon that said, I want to know why running backs are not getting paid the way they feel they should get paid. And the fact of the matter is, you just got to understand it's a supply and demand economics league. It's a, league that's now become over 60% throw. It's a league that doesn't, everything in the NFL goes in cycles, right? There was a time when you had, a bell cow back. You had, a Ricky Bell. You had a Walter Payton. You had John Riggins. You had one guy that was your featured guy. Well, those days are gone now because, if you lose a bell cow, then, who do you got behind them? And I think the thing now, everybody's into running back by committee. Derrick Henry's kind of a throwback to the old days, but he's paid that way. And as the running game gets less and less emphasis, the running back is obviously going to get fewer and fewer dollars because you got to have a quarterback. You got to protect the quarterback, so you better have a left tackle. You better have a dynamic wide receiver. And there's only so much money to go around inside the cap. So obviously the running back position has taken a hit, and those guys who are elite level backs, you talk about Eckler, all he does is get the ball in the end zone, but they don't have the bargaining power. The quarterbacks have the bargaining power. The left tackles have the bargaining power. The dynamic wide receivers have the bargaining power, and that's just the way that the game's played now. Same's true. The same, Mike. You look at it. We'll go to the other side of the ball. Same's true at linebacker. Once upon a time, the linebacker was your highest paid guy on defense. Now you're looking at paying, edge rushers, corners, guys that affect the game more than the linebacker can.
Do you think we're going to see a quick sort of, roundup to this? We're talking about a situation where he can sit out the whole of camp. He can have his pay tucked down to around $500,000 per game missed. But it's more so, in my opinion, Jeff, like this is huge. They have paid Daniel Jones. There is a real sense of optimism in New York now. And Barkley, look, I accept what you're saying. I agree it's supply and demand, but I feel for the guy because he is, his career is with that team. And I feel that running backs should get a bit more respect. I really, really do. And I feel like, at the time of recording, look at Dalvin Cook. I think it's crazy. And I know we'll talk about the AFC East in our next pod, and maybe we'll see him in New England. But it's bananas to me that we're sitting here at the end of July and Dalvin Cook is not signed and Saquon can't negotiate a deal with his team. Whatever Joe Sheehan has said to him that they will work something out, and it still hasn't happened. Do you think he'll play the season in New York?
I think he'll play. I think, for an NFL player to take a season off, number one, it's really expensive. I mean, it costs you a lot of money. Number two, when just talking about the Giants and Dable and the coaching staff and all the people in the front office and every Giants fan, this is not the kind of distraction you want going into training camp. This is not what you want in a team where you're trying to battle to get, they've got to get past Philadelphia and Dallas, right? And so they need all hands on deck and they need everybody focused and going in the same direction. right now it's obvious it's not that case. And, the same can be said in every one of those situations. The Raiders with Jacobs and wherever Dalvin Cook's got some other issues off the field that have come up in the last couple of days that are going to make his situation a little bit more interesting. So, that's all part of the deal. And it's one of the reasons why, Bill Polian said to me one time, he said, my number one job as the GM, he's a longtime GM of both the Bills and built championships teams in Buffalo and in Indianapolis, he said, is to create economic harmony in the locker room. And, there is not economic harmony in the locker room right now in New York with the Giants. There's not with the Raiders, and there's not, with the Chargers out in LA because of, these three high profile running backs complaining about, the contracts.
I fully agree. And just to say, yeah, there is obviously news with Dalvin Cook the last few days. I think, and of course, and I can see why he may not sign for for a team for a while now. I will say, I thought he would have been one of the first guys picked up, and it shows you the market, though, even a few months ago. Jeff, we are going to talk AFC East our next podcast, which is coming out in the middle of next week. So you're talking the last week in July. And then we are back from the 2nd of August with, have you any plan? Are we going to go through camp, and are we going to fly around camp like Neil does, or is that not in our budget?
No, I obviously, I've got to coach a season yet, but I certainly think that we're going to be able to get some inside look at what's going on around the training camps and, who's doing what. I know that, for example, Cole Beasley had a workout this week, and, there's a possibility he might see him signed. That's just kind of where we're at right now as teams get into training camp and take a look at who they got. There's still some pretty good football players out on the street that, would be veterans that teams would, bring in if they feel like they have a need. It's all of that and more as we go through training camps. Who played well in the preseason games? I love the preseason games, Mike, because you get a chance to see, the young kids perform for the first time in the National Football League. And, I know you don't see much out of the veterans, but, that's because you don't want to expose them to injury, and you get the kids, the young guys, an opportunity to play.
Big game tonight for you with the Tiger Cats going up against the Toronto Argonauts. Is that correctly pronounced?
Toronto, yeah, and Toronto is this is a huge game for us because they're 45 minutes up the road. This is the 100th time that our two teams have met each other tonight. It'll be here in Tim Hortons Field. It's sold out. These two teams don't like each other, and again, they like to dislike each other. It's the best way I can say it. It'll be a great environment in the stadium tonight.
Finally, your man Owen Murphy's playing in the All-Ireland final this Sunday for Kilkenny. Have you any mention for him or the lads going up against Limerick?
I just think that I hope that they play well, and I hope that they. To beat Limerick and it'd be a big game, and it's actually been fun to kind of check up on those guys all through the season, and I'm becoming more and more, Irish as we go through this, Mike. I mean, it's unbelievable, and we get so many great questions from the Irish and English fans, and all the way back to Hawaii, and just keep those questions coming. If we don't answer them on the show, I'll try and answer them on Twitter as we go through. But certainly, I think we're going to have a show a week, it sounds like, Michael, that's dedicated solely to, questions from the fans, because they're asking great questions. It's amazing how well-educated and well-versed the fans around the world are. It used to be that the Americans would always say, well, they don't know. What do they know about football? Well, you find out when you do a podcast like we do that, their fans all over the world know a great deal about football, their football teams, and the players in the league.
Big shout out to everyone that's interacting with the show. At Jeff_Roundbolt, at Michael_NFL, at NFL Ireland. Good luck to Owen this weekend. Same colours as Hamilton. Good luck to you tonight, Jeff. CFL Plus. If you're listening in, folks, have a great weekend. Chat to you soon, Jeff. Mahalo.
Aloha.